The moment your lifetime access card dies at the gate you helped build is not loud, that it's just one soft, final beep, followed by two cruel red flashes. That's the sound of 27 years of loyalty being erased in under 2 seconds. My name is Walt Brennan. I turned 64 last April. For the last 27 years, I've been the principal architect of the Sentinel Array, the satellite simulation platform the Air Force and Space Force used to train against orbital threats, missile swarms, and electronic warfare in real time. I wrote the first physics kernel on an old compact desktop in 1998 when most people still thought satellites were just expensive weather cameras. Every successful test launch, every pilot who came home safe because of our pre-mission sims, that's my handwriting in the code. That Monday morning in late October, the security turnstile at Orbital Dynamics Corporation refused me. The young guard, polite, nervous, probably still in his first year out of community college, looked at his screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "Sir, your credential shows as revoked. I'll have to issue a temporary visitor pass." Revoked. The word hit like cold wine through an open hangar door. I'd walked these halls when the building was still a blueprint. I'd trained the engineers who trained the current engineers. My signature was on the original DoD contract paperwork from 2001. And now I was a visitor. I took the flimsy paper badge, stuck it to my coat, and rode the elevator to the 14th floor in silence. The hallway smelled of new carpet and ambition. My office, the quiet corner one with the reinforced glass looking out over the Chesapeake Bay, had been converted into something called an innovation lounge. Bean bags, whiteboards, a coffee bar with oat milk options. Point two facilities workers were carrying out the last of my things in a cardboard box. The photo of Margaret and me on our 40th wedding anniversary cruise. The faded commendation letter from General Raymond, signed in blue ink. The antique sextant I kept on the shelf because sometimes the old ways remind you why the new ones mattered. They'd moved my secure workstation to Annex Base 7, a windowless row of cubicles next to the vending machines. The kind of place they send people they're phasing out. I sat in the cheap chair. It creaked like old bones. Most men my age would have stormed into the new VP's office right then, yelling about age discrimination, wrongful termination, lawyers. I didn't. 27 years in defense contracting, plus 12 before that in the Air Force, taught me something simple. When the enemy moves first, you don't shout your counterattack. You build it quietly and let it speak when the time is right. Her name was Claire Donovan, 43, Wharton MBA. Came in 8 months ago as Executive Vice President of Next Gen Transformation. In her first town hall, she called Sentinel a beautiful antique that needs to be reimagined for the cloud era. She said my core simulation engine was over-engineered legacy bloat. She wanted to replace it with AI-augmented predictive modeling and microservices agility. She didn't seem to understand that when you're simulating a hypersonic glide vehicle closing at Mach 12, agility doesn't save lives. Rock-solid, battle-tested math does. That afternoon, her company-wide email landed. Effective immediately, all technical documentation and stakeholder updates will consolidate under the Transformation Office for unified messaging and brand consistency. Thank you for your partnership during this pivotal evolution. Unified messaging. Translation. Your name disappears from the credits, and mine takes its place. I didn't answer the email. Instead, I opened my personal encrypted drive, the one I keep air-gapped, with keys memorized like my social security number, and started a new entry, log 001, October 28th. The erasure begins. I sat back, looked at Margaret's photo in the box, and remembered the promise I made her the night before she passed. "Walt," she'd said, voice thin but steady, "you built things that protect people. Don't ever let anyone take that away from you." I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just awake, and the big Diddy final acceptance review was 9 days away. The annex base smelled like burnt coffee and quiet defeat. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like insects that never sleep. I sat there for a long hour after the email came, staring at the cardboard box that now held most of my professional life. And I thought about the men I'd served with who never got a second chance to prove they still belonged. Claire Donovan didn't waste time. The BY Tuesday sheet already started the rewrite. I could hear her through the thin partition walls during the morning stand-up. Her voice crisp, confident, the way people sound when they've never had to earn their place the hard way. "We've decoupled the legacy validation layers for better throughput," she announced to the team. The new AI inference engine will anticipate threats faster than any rule-based system ever could. This is the future of orbital defense simulation. I almost laughed. Quiet, bitter. Those legacy validation layers were the reason a simulated missile swarm in 2014 didn't false positive and send a training squadron scrambling for nothing. They were checksums, digital fingerprints, and manual sign-offs that made sure no update ever slipped through without the architect's eyes on it. Remove them, and the whole system becomes a house of cards waiting for the first stiff breeze that I didn't storm the meeting. Instead, I did what I've always done when the odds look long. I started gathering evidence. Using my personal tablet, still on the old contractor VPN they hadn't fully severed yet. I pulled the change logs. Every commit she'd approved showed up in red. Removed authorship metadata from core kernel modules. Bypassed integrity checks for accelerated deployment. Replaced manual verification handshake with auto-approved neural confidence score greater than 92%. She was erasing me line by line. In defense contracting. That's not just rude. It's dangerous. When the admirals and generals ask, who stands behind this code? During a review, they want a name they can trust, not a title. A name. Wednesday afternoon, she came by the annex herself, high heels clicking like a metronome. She leaned against the cubicle wall, arms folded, looking down at me like I was a project she'd already closed out. Walt, she said, using my first name the way people do when they want to sound friendly while delivering bad news. I know this feels abrupt, but we're entering the sustainment phase. Your foundational work was critical, truly, but we need to pivot to a more scalable model now. I'd like you to hand over your working notes and any private scripts to the transformation team by end of day Friday. I looked up slowly. Those private scripts are the only reason the Sentinel hasn't had a catastrophic sim failure in 18 years, Claire. You take them without understanding the dependencies, and the next live exercise could lock up mid-run. She smiled, patient, practiced. That's the beauty of the new architecture. It self-heals. We're moving beyond manual dependencies. Outcomes over process, Walt. You'll see. It's liberating. Liberating. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and HR will be reaching out about your transition package. We appreciate your long service. She walked away, heels echoing down the corridor. I waited until the sound faded, then opened my encrypted drive again. Log 002, October 30th. The handoff deadline is set. She thinks she's closing the book. That evening I drove to the little diner off Route 50, the one with the neon sign that's been half burned out since the Reagan years. It's where old-timers from the Pentagon and contractors like me go when we need to talk without microphones listening. Colonel, Rhett, Daniel Hawk, Whitaker was already in the back booth, nursing black coffee. He'd flown the first operational missions that used early versions of Sentinel to prep for anti-satellite drills that we'd known each other since I was a captain, and he was a hotshot test pilot. He looked up as I slid in. You look like someone just stole your dog, Walt. Worse, I said. They're trying to steal my life's work. I told him everything. The metadata scrub, the bypass checks, the upcoming DoD final review where she planned to demo the new and improved Sentinel without me in the room. Hawk listened, jaw tight. They won't sign off without provenance, he said finally. The review board is religious about chain of custody on mission-critical sims. If your name's gone and something glitches, it'll glitch, I said quietly. She set a timer in the new inference layer that expires the old handshake protocol exactly 1 minute before her big reveal. I added it years ago as a dead man switch. Requires my manual key every 60 days or the graphical overlay refuses to render. She thinks she deleted it. She only commented it out. Hawk let out a low whistle. You're setting a trap. I'm setting a mirror, I corrected. She wants to own the system? She can own the failure too. I reached into my coat and slid a small, matte black external drive across the table. Source code baseline from last month. Digitally signed. Full audit trail of every change she's made since she took over. Every email where she calls the validation layers obsolete cruft. Keep it offline until the review. He covered the drive with his hand. You sure about this? I looked out the window at the dark parking lot. Margaret made me promise I'd never let anyone take what I built. This is me keeping that promise. Hawk nodded once. I'll be there Wednesday. General Ortiz runs the review board now. He remembers you. If it goes sideways, he'll want answers. I paid for the coffee. As I walked to my truck. The first cold rain of the season started falling to IT felt like the sky was washing the world clean, getting ready for what came next. Friday morning, they escorted me out. No drama. Just a polite security officer with a cardboard box and a script to read that I handed over my company badge. The one that had opened doors for 27 years that I kept the DoD contractor credential in my wallet. The gold chip one that doesn't expire until you do. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the glass tower shrinking behind me. Claire thought she'd won the war. She didn't realize the battle hadn't even started. Wednesday morning broke with a low, gray sky over the Chesapeake. The kind of weather that makes old pilots check their instruments twice. I dressed in my best charcoal suit. The one Margaret always said made me look like I still had business with the world. Tucked in my inside pocket was the gold-chip DoD contractor badge, still valid, still federal, still a key no corporate VP could revoke. I drove to Orbital Dynamics slowly, letting the wipers sweep away the drizzle. The parking lot was crowded with black government SUVs and staff sedans. The final acceptance review for the next-generation Sentinel upgrade was set for 2 p.m. in the executive boardroom. Claire's big moment. Her chance to show the generals, admirals, and Space Force brass the shiny, modernized version she'd built on top of my bones. The main gate. The same young guard who denied me weeks earlier saw me approach. His hand went to his radio instinctively. "Mr. Brennan." "I'm sorry, sir, but Ms. Donovan gave strict instructions." I stopped 3 feet from the turnstile, pulled out the DoD badge, and held it up so the gold chip caught the light. "I'm not here as an Orbital employee, son," I said, voice steady as an old altimeter. "I'm here as the original principal architect of Sentinel Array, attending at the request of the review board for a classified systems audit. If you block me, you're interfering with a federal DoD proceeding. You want to explain that to the MPs outside." His face drained. He looked at the badge, then at the row of dark vehicles, then back at me. He stepped aside without another word. The turnstile clicked green. The elevator ride to the 14th floor was quiet. Fresh lilies lined the hallway outside the boardroom. Someone's idea of making the place look welcoming. They smelled like a funeral parlor. I pushed the heavy oak doors open without knocking. The room froze mid-conversation. General Ortiz sat at the head of the long table, arms crossed, face like weathered granite. Flanking him were 2 Space Force colonels, a Navy captain, and a handful of senior analysts with notepads on the company's side. The CEO, the CFO, and Claire Donovan, standing near the projection screen with a laser pointer in her hand, mid-sentence. When she saw me, her smile cracked, just for a heartbeat, before she rebuilt it into something sharp and professional. "Walter," she said, loud enough for the whole room. "This is a closed executive and military review session. You're no longer authorized." I stayed in the doorway, hands at my sides. "I'm the system architect, Claire. Sentinel won't complete its final initialization without the lead signatory present." "That's me." She laughed, short, incredulous. "Your contributions were foundational, truly. But we've moved forward. The transformation is complete. Please wait in the corridor. There's a chair outside." Silence stretched like a taut cable. N01 moved. The generals watched. The executives shifted uncomfortably. General Ortiz cleared his throat. The sound cut through the room like a knife through silk. "Ms. Donovan," he said, rising slowly. "Did you just instruct the man who designed the Sentinel Core to wait outside like a delivery boy?" Claire blinked. "General, in our internal structure, I don't give a flying damn about your internal structure." Ortiz interrupted, voice low and final. "Walter Brennan wrote the physics kernel that's kept pilots, satellites, and national assets safe for 27 years. If he leaves this room, the review ends. The contract ends. We walk. Are we clear?" The CEO went pale. The CFO stared at the table like it might swallow him. Claire recovered. "Barely. Of course, General. Let's proceed with the demonstration." She turned to her laptop, fingers trembling just enough to notice. The clock on the wall read 1:59 p.m., initializing Sentinel Array Next Gen, she announced, voice forced bright. She hit enter. The main screen flickered, then went black. Red text crawled across the center in stark block letters. "Critical error 7001. Lead architect verification RN contact. W. Brennan system integrity protocol engaged. Graphical overlay denied." A murmur rippled through the room. Claire stared at the screen as if it had personally betrayed her. "It's a temporary glitch," she said quickly. We'll reroute. It's not a glitch, I said quietly, stepping forward. It's a safeguard. You removed my name from the provenance chain and bypassed the mandatory handshake. The system identified an unauthorized lead. That's how it's supposed to work. She turned to me, eyes wide. Fix it, Walter. Please. General Ortiz stepped between us. Step away from the terminal, Ms. Donovan. I moved to the laptop, connected my personal encrypted key fob, and entered the override. Eagle Legacy, Brennan Actual. The red vanished. Green status bars rose like dawn. The simulation booted. Flawless orbital threat scenario. Hypersonic missiles, electronic countermeasures, real-time evasion. Perfect physics. Perfect response. Ortiz watched the full run, then nodded once. Outstanding. He turned to the CEO. You have a leadership problem. Fix it. Claire stood frozen for a long second. Then she walked out, head high, but shoulders tight. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click that I looked at the generals. They looked back, not with pity, but with the quiet respect men give when they recognize someone who's earned his place the hard way. The next morning the phone rang at 7:15 sharp. It was the CEO himself. Voice careful, almost humble. Walt, this is Richard Caldwell. I'd like to speak with you in person if possible. We'd like to make this right. I drove back to Orbital Dynamics in the same charcoal suit. The guard at the gate nodded respectfully. No questions, no visitor badged. He just waved me through. Up on the 14th floor, the Innovation Lounge was gone. My old corner office had been restored overnight. Reinforced window overlooking the bay, secure workstation reconnected, even the antique sextant back on the shelf. The cardboard box was unpacked. Margaret's photo sat front and center, smiling like she'd known all along. Caldwell waited. Inside with the CFO and the head of HR, NO assistants, NO PowerPoint. Just three men who looked like they hadn't slept. Walt, Caldwell began, standing up as I entered. Yesterday was a disaster of our own making. General Ortiz made it clear, no Brennan, no contract. We're offering you Chief Technology Officer, full executive authority over all simulation programs. Your budget line restored and expanded. Your team reports directly to you. Base salary $285,000, plus performance equity and the lead on Project Aegis, the new National Orbital Resilience Network. I let the silence sit for a moment, looked out at the water, gray and steady under the winter sky. Then I nodded once. I'll take it. But on one condition, provenance stays sacred. No more rewriting history. Every architect's name remains on the code they wrote. That's non-negotiable. Caldwell didn't hesitate. Done. By afternoon, the paperwork was signed and I moved back in. The secure terminals hummed to life like old friends. Nicole, the young analyst who'd always asked good questions, stopped by with coffee. Welcome back, sir. The team's been waiting for you. I smiled. Call me Walt. And thank you for holding the line while I was gone. That evening, my daughter Emily called from Colorado. She's 38, married, 2 boys, works as a systems engineer for a small aerospace firm. Dad, I heard what happened. The whole industry's talking. You okay? I leaned back in my chair, watching the lights come on across the bay. I'm better than okay, Em. I got my office back. And more importantly, I got to keep the promise I made your mother. She was quiet for a second. Mom would be proud. She always said you built things that last. She did. And she was right. After we hung up, I opened a new project window on the big monitor. Project Aegis, National Orbital Resilience Network. A beast of a challenge. Integrating aging satellite constellations, commercial providers, legacy ground stations, 12 federal agencies, red tape thicker than a battleship hull, vulnerabilities everywhere. Threats evolving faster than budgets. My kind of problem. I cracked my knuckles, the way I always do before diving in. Typed the first line. Initialize Aegis Core lead. Architect. W. Brennan. The cursor blinked patiently. I smiled. Small, satisfied. Claire Donovan had tried to erase 27 years of work, replace experience with buzzwords and ambition. That she'd learned the hard way that in this business, competence isn't optional. It's the foundation, and foundations don't move unless you let them. I looked at Margaret's photo one more time. I kept it, sweetheart, I said softly to the quiet room. Then I went back to the code, building the future, one secure line at a time. Nobody was taking my name off the system again.